Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's episode, we speak to Jonny from Holy Goat, the goat of mixed firm and barrel-aged beers in the UK. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello, hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us.
Hello, welcome, Jonny. For anyone that is not watching this video, that can't see your t-shirt and maybe can't gauge from the excitement, I'm very excited in particular about this episode. I feel like I talk about your beers a lot. We talk about it on the podcast. We've had beers on the podcast before from Holy Goat. Oh, spoiler alert. Do you want to give a quick introduction to who you are, what your role is, and where you're from, for anyone that doesn't know you?
Sure, yeah. I'm Jonny Horn. I am co-founder, director, and head brewer for Holy Goat Brewing. And we're based in Dundee, an hour north of Edinburgh. I'm, as you could probably tell from the sound of me, not from Dundee. I'm originally from down Londonish way, but I've been living in Scotland for the last 12 years odd. So, started the brewery end of 2020, peak COVID joy, and have since then just been figuring it all out and dealing with all the crap that comes our way. Is there swearing in this?
Yeah, you can swear.
Yeah, we sort of I think we tried to keep swearing to a minimum, but I really struggled with that, and so we abolished that within the first few episodes that we did. We're on episode 100 or nearly 200 now, so you're good company. It's fine.
Okay.
So in terms of how many people, just for anyone that doesn't know, I think that sometimes breweries, especially when you're people are really, really excited for your beers and you're being talked about and everything, people can misunderstand just how big a brewery is. Your team, am I correct in saying you are literally a team of 3 at the brewery?
Yeah, that's right. So there's me and James, who is my business partner, and then we've got one employee, Gary, who is sort of the everything man. He does but yeah, there's just 3 of us, and then we have occasional work from artists and photographers who do bits and bobs for us. But yeah, day to day, it's just the 3 of us.
Literally, just the kind of stuff that you guys come out of being there's just 3 of us is just I feel like people need to take a moment to just take that in as well. Some of the stuff you come up with to be yep, just 3. Very, very impressive. And so today, do you want to talk us through, do you want to give a brief on the 3 beers that we've got today, and then we'll crack one open. We can talk about it first and foremost before we get into all the questions that I feel like we've got for you.
Yeah, sure. So the first beer for today is Bergamot Crusher. So this is our straight golden sour base, and then we've gotten in a load of fresh bergamots from Italy, and we got these directly from the producer, and all the bergamots came fresh. We zested them, juiced them, and then everything went into the beer, including the pulp, just the whole lot. So it's come out super pungent and awesome. I couldn't be happier with how that beer has come out. So super excited for you guys to try that. And then after that, we have Starhammer, which is another golden sour, similar base, but more of a tropical base. And that one's with starfruit, which is a pretty uncommon tropical fruit, but has lots of nice citrus and pear and sort of tropical passion fruit, pineapple characteristics from it. So that one's really interesting. That was an interesting one to get hold of that fruit and in a cost-effective way use that fruit. But I think it goes well with the base beer. And then the final beer that we'll talk about today is the 1867 Double Export Stout, which is, so as the name suggests, based on a historical recipe from 1867 for a very strong stout that was a lot of roasted malt goes into, so you don't get the sort of pastry, sweet, sort of soft stouts that you often see nowadays. This is an old school stout. This is a bit more punchy in terms of flavors. So yeah.
So for anyone that has listened to us before, which I'm guessing this is probably not the first time you've listened to us, when we did a historic beer episode for historic recipes, and I believe this is at least the second one I've seen of what you've done. You did like an original export stout as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because we had that on. We basically were like, yes, this is exciting. We can use this for this historic recipes, and it was just like so good. So I'm really, really looking forward to the double export, because I'm like, ooh, if it's half as good as the first one, really excited for it.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's been a long day. Let's crack open the first one.
Open.
Yeah.
While we're cracking this one open, you said the base for the Starhammer is a slightly more tropical base. Like, how do you differentiate between the two bases? What's different in the recipe?
So it's primarily the yeast that we use. So we've got basically about 15, 16 different tanks, and each one has a different blend of yeast or Brettanomyces. They're all primarily, I'm talking about Brettanomyces here, because we specialize in 100% Brettanomyces fermentation. Some Brettanomyces strains are very fruit forward in terms of citrus, and some are more tropical forward. Some have a sort of like a berry fruit characteristic as well. So these are the sorts of different strains I've got at hand at the moment, and it's just sort of like playing around with them, seeing what works best as a base for which beer. And then, so for the citrus beers, we're typically looking at the citrus, although the tropical fruit ones go perfectly well as well. And then, obviously, the tropical ones really accentuate, the tropical fruit flavors. So we'll see that with the Starhammer. And then for like the Flanders Reds, the berry fruit flavored ones often work really nicely, but pretty much anything works quite well for the Flanders Reds, I've found. Anyway, cheers.
Cheers.
This
smell. Oh my god.
Amazing.
It's definitely the one of the punchiest aromas from a beer we've done.
It was like the second I cracked the top of that bottle as well, it was just like, you didn't even need to be like close to it, and now it's just like pure, or like that tartness as well, that really like sticks on your lips in like the best way.
Beautiful.
It literally just tastes like tart, like really tart orange. Which is incredible.
Do you get much of the bitterness coming through? Because there's a subtle bitterness. Well, in the actual juice, when I was tasting the juice, it's got a really strong bitterness. It's like bitter grapefruit. Yeah. But then it's blended because of the amount of oranges we got. Was, I think it was like 50 kilos for a 2,000 litre batch. So the actual juice we got from those was only probably about 20 or 30 litres. So you don't get as much of that come through, although I still find there's like, it's got that herbal sort of like bitter character in there.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that all balances really well. Like,
but that's the thing, a little bit of bitterness like balances quite nicely against everything, so you don't really like get hit with it too much.
Because I was going to say, for me, it was like it's quite subtle, but because of the way it's balanced with that tartness as well, I feel like that tartness is really just sort of like the main sort of front runner in that, and it is just like super refreshing. I feel like if I was sat outside in the sun, this is like such a good sitting in the sun beer for me. Like this is just really, really lovely and refreshing.
Crusher is the name, right?
So we've got these. We do these citrus crusher named beers a couple of times a year, and they've all usually got this label, like this character on the label, artwork by Jim Bob Isaac, and primarily because there's two citrus. Well, there's two main citrus seasons. So we like to do one in winter when there's really not much of anything else growing. So it's nice to have a fresh fruit in winter, and then obviously in summer you just want to be drinking a beer like this. So it's perfect to use the summer harvest as well. But the winter harvest usually gives you a little bit other citrus varieties as well. So it's nice to sort of like see what's going on there. And Bergamot just popped up because I was looking at this. So we buy a lot of the citrus fruit and some of the other fruits we get through this website called crowd farming, and it basically links you up directly with farmers all over Europe. And I just saw, oh, bergamots, oh, amazing. I've not used them before, but I know the flavor and it's really intense and quite perfumed and it's in Earl Grey.
Yeah.
So I was very interested. So I got what I thought would be enough, and thankfully it was. It's about 3 times more expensive than like regular oranges, but definitely you get your bang for buck with these
Yeah.
three. Yeah,
Worth it.
I was
Yeah.
just going to ask you about that. You mentioned about sort of like how you get it, and I was going to say like how that was going to be my question of how do you procure all these fruits, and like is it just a case of you kind of go, that's how much they like? So the bergamot, was it a case of like you could kind of say, I think I need this much, or they're like, this is kind of how much we have to sell at the moment, and you were like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I'll make that work, sort of thing.
I think it's part of it is like this is the sort of budget I've got, and this is how much I think I'll need, and hopefully the two marry up. And sometimes you end up spending way over because you're just like, I need more. Or some fruits like crazy expensive, like the star fruit one we will come to. And sometimes it works out perfectly. So yeah, it just sort of depends, but generally you can sort of like push the finances a little bit to get what you want. I mean, we're making premium beer, so like, you might as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something we've spoken about before on the podcast. Like, people think like there's a certain type of person who thinks that beer should be cheap, but if you're
Mm,
going for a premium product and you're putting a lot of fruit in something to get these kind of flavors, that can be expensive. So we're
yeah,
all for premium beer being what it needs to be, what it needs to cost. Because if you want
yeah,
to drink something like this, you got to pay for it, right? People do it for wine, so why wouldn't you do it with beer?
But even then, I find it really like impressive because I don't feel like your price points are like
Yeah,
ridiculously high. I feel like they are still like for the flavors that you're getting and the interesting combinations that you're getting, and like the way you can do mixed bags. And then I think you guys do like free shipping. I think it is from what, £49. Like, I actually feel like it's a premium product, but it's not actually like
yeah,
burning through your pocket, if that makes sense. Like, it still
yeah.
feels very, for a luxury item, it still feels like quite affordable, especially for
I'm
what you're
glad.
getting.
I'm glad it comes across like that because we do try and stay competitive, and I think it's important to not charge too much for your beer because it just
yeah,
makes it inaccessible. Like we want people to drink these beers, but we also don't want to go bankrupt. So it's like
yeah.
finding the right balance there.
Delicate balance.
And
Especially when you're using stuff like, but like
Yeah.
the stuff that you don't get all the time, that's got to be like really hard to be
yeah,
like, okay, let's see, like how do we make this work? But yeah, I've never felt like it's been like excessive by any means. When it comes to like the recipes, so obviously you mentioned like you hadn't used bergamot before, you kind of saw it going, like, did you know that's what you wanted to use for your crusher, or was it kind of a bit like how do you go about creating your recipes? Do you kind of go in thinking, this is what I want to make, let's see what I can find to make this with, or do you kind of go in with a little bit more of a formed idea, or how does it work?
So for the golden sour beers like this, generally we have a base stock. So we'll have like 15, 20 tanks of different age stock, and it will all be at different ages. So some of it will be a couple of weeks, some of it will be a few months, some longer. And then basically when it comes time to working out, okay, what's the next release? What fruit are we putting, or are we going to release a beer without any fruit, or what's happening with it? We'll look at what beer we have available and basically decide, okay, well, we sort of want to do a citrus beer this time of year. We've got stock from 5 different tanks that is matured enough to be used, which tastes best for it, and then we'll pick because the tanks are mostly 1,000 liters. We'll pick 2 of the tanks and blend them together with the fruit, and it all comes together in tank, and then we'll spund it at that point. So it's just spunding is like an old German technique of carbonating the beer with natural sugars from the fermentation. But instead of for the fermentation, because the beer's pretty much fermented out by then, we're using the fruit sugars. But that has a nice effect of keeping in all the fruit aromas that would otherwise get blown off through the fermentation. So yeah, a nice way of utilizing fruit in a couple of ways. Saves us using up CO2 or adding extra sugar to condition it. And yeah, it locks in that flavor and aroma.
Oh, that's cool.
This feels like a really nerdy question that like people probably aren't thinking about. It's not like super nerdy in the beer side of things, but just like in the what goes into like making the beers. So like when you are going, okay, we're going to make this, obviously the fruit can only stay for so long. How far in advance do you actually have to think about the beers that you're going to make to be able to get what you need in time?
Well, I've got my current production schedule. I'm usually about 3 to 6 months. I know pretty sure what's happening in the next 3 months, and mostly sure about 6 months, and then 12 months, like 6 to 12 months. I'm like I've got a fairly decent idea, but it's nothing set in stone. And it's a lot of stuff. It's like something pops up, and it's just like, oh, cool, we can slot that in then. And there's always the beers themselves, like brewing the beer, because our maturation stage is so long. It's like minimum 3 months. We can't, I can't physically, like mentally figure that out. So often the base beer is just plain base beer that's just fermented with a different kind of Brett, and we have that on hand to sort of like do things to, and everything gets added towards the later stage usually. There's very few occasions where we'll add stuff at the time we're brewing it for these sorts of sour beers. So that maybe that happens with the wit beer, the mixed ferm wit beer that we brew. But currently I don't have one in tanks, so that probably is going to take a break from this year unless we do in a different way. But yeah, there's a few other beers where we'll brew it so it can only be that beer. But yeah, it sort of locks you into that idea, and you can't get away from it. Whereas currently we've got a lot of freedom to play around with things.
That's cool.
I feel like as this is as I'm continuing to drink this as well, there is more of that sort of like perfumey element that's coming into it in like a really just nice way. Like it's just so there's such a complexity with Holy Goat beers that's what I really love. Like I found that over the last more so in the last 2 years or so, like it's felt like I've been wanting personally to go into more of like the what's interesting, what is borderline risky sometimes, what is like things that I wouldn't what is weird and wonderful. And I find that there's so much complexity in the Holy Goat stuff, which is why I love it so much. But what was the beer that sort of got you into this style of beers?
Into this style of beers, I mean, Lambic was one of those beer styles that when I first heard about, I was like, what? That sounds crazy. I was introduced to it by my brother-in-law, who is Belgian, and he was like, "Oh, you should try these spontaneously fermented beers." And I was into my Belgian beers already, but I'd never tried them. And so he got me into them, and then I was just like, "This stuff's mental." I remember having some like Boone lambics that were just like so intensely like farmyardy and like leathery and horsey. It was just like I couldn't really finish it, but I was really interested.
Yeah.
So those sorts of beers definitely, like the Belgian influence for me has always been the strongest one there, and that's always I think been a theme, and I hope it's still a theme. It's visibly a theme in Holy Goat. It's a lot of a lot of the beers we try and sort of like pay homage to are very the Belgian styles. It's sort of like if a Belgian producer decided to use bergamot oranges, what would it be like? And
Yeah.
then here's our sort of like angle on what it would be like.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I feel like that goes really nicely into the question about, so on your website, you talk about the story behind the name Holy Goat. But for anyone that's not read your website, could you explain a bit about where the name actually came from? If we go back to the origin story of the brewery.
yeah, sure. So Brettanomyces yeast, which is what we sort of specialize in as a brewery, is sort of considered a wild yeast. It's not typically used by breweries to ferment their beers, especially not the way we do it, where it's 100% fermentation, which is I would say more of a recent brewing development. And there's only maybe one or two other breweries in the world who sort of do it to the same level as us. Crooked Stave in the US are probably the most noted one. One of the guys there used to study in Edinburgh, and he wrote a thesis on sort of fermenting with primary Brett fermentation. But yeah, so there's not many breweries making this sort of beer. Um, the the reference to Holy Goat is that Brettanomyces is known for being quite like a goat. It's likened to a goat because it's quite hardy. It will eat through all the sugars, at least in certain situations, and can produce some pretty weird characteristics. Sometimes likened to like goaty, farmy, and yeah, a bit barnyardy. But interestingly, we don't get so much barnyardy character from the way we ferment. It's more like fruity, tropical, just punched in the face with fruit most of the time. And then for certain other beers, we can get that sort of more goaty element. But and then like goats are also like pretty metal, so and that fits within like completely within like sort of yeah, our branding and just ourselves, like what we like. So yeah, that's how the name sort of fits us.
Love it. So, in a previous live, is it correct that you were an archaeologist?
Yeah, yeah.
What made you move into beer from that?
The career I had in archaeology was mostly is like, well, postgraduate. So I was doing a little bit of teaching and writing articles and stuff like that, but I didn't really see a career developing from that. The job I was most looking at would be a museum curator for like British prehistory, and there's about maybe half a dozen of those jobs in the UK. And once you get that job, you usually keep that job for the rest of your life. So it was just like, there's no way I'm getting like, I could have maybe if I persevered, but I also started getting really into brewing at the same time, and I was like, oh, actually, I could make something of this. And then, I mean, the opportunity came where I started. I was a home brewer, just making weird stuff for a long time, and then a local bar in Edinburgh, the Hanging Bat. They were looking for a brewer to take over their 50-litre pilot kit in the back. So that was like a nice segue from homebrewing 20 litres to homebrewing 50 litres and selling it directly to the bar, directly on the bar to whoever. So that meant as well, it was basically like someone was paying for all my ingredients to experiment.
Nice.
So it was very easy to fall in love with brewing, especially that was at the time when like craft beer was super exciting and new things were happening. Not that it's not at the moment, of course, but you know, like that was like the heyday. We were getting in all the US beers for the first times, and I sort of look back on it as the heyday. And yeah, it was difficult not to sort of fall in love with it and want to sort of pursue that as a career. So yeah.
I've been to the Hanging Bat a few times, like when because I know that. So I've always kind of said, so I sort of live closer to Reading, and I've always kind of said that if I had to move sort of anywhere else in the UK, like the only other place that I think that I could see myself 100% being like, yes, I would love to live there, is like Scotland. And we've gone up there like a few times, and I feel like every time I've got in there, I've really, really liked that. I don't think I realised though, because at the time, the few times that I'd got in there, I wasn't necessarily there seeking out craft beer. This was like years and years ago, and so I didn't even realise that they had like a pilot kit in the back there or anything like that. That's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of like tucked away in a cupboard in the corner. There's a glass like walls that you can see through. So it'd be like the monkey in the corner, like, and then everyone would be like pointing and looking, and I'll just be like making the beer and stirring the thing. Luckily, someone else is doing that now.
I feel like I just like went in. We'd go in for like a drink because it would be kind of like a stop on the way. We'd be like, oh, I really like the vibes in here. We'd come in for a drink, and then it would kind of be, I never like. I really regret in some of the places that I've been to there, like not stopping and taking it in a bit more. Because never even. It's just when you said the name, I was like, I know for a fact I've been there, and I've been there a few times because I remember being like, if I'm recommending a spot to people to go to, these are the spots that I'm recommending, and that was definitely one of them. But yeah, that's really interesting. And then I guess what led you sort of like to start Holy Goat?
So from work at the Hanging Bat, I was like, I need a brewery, and then from that, I met my then business partner and started Vault City Brewing, and from there, it was figuring out two home brewers trying to figure out how to be a commercial brewery. So there was a lot of learning what we're doing and trying to figure it all out. And I think in figuring it all out, it's sort of what I wanted out of it sort of maybe got lost a little bit on the way. And from that, I realized that at a certain point, it was not really working and needed to move on and do sort of something that's more specifically like what I wanted. And that's that led to about 2020, and it was sort of like, I think COVID was sort of just coming in, like sort of the first quarter or second quarter of 2020, and it was that sort of time when it became clear that things needed, like it was time to change. And then the rest of that summer was all just like planning, and then getting everything going, and then in I think it was November, we set up the Holy Goat website and had like a pre-release that was just like merch, and you could like pre-order boxes or whatever. It's going back a while now, but and setting up the brewery at the same time, which is crazy.
I feel like I remember the anticipation.
Yeah. I remember seeing it being like, this looks so cool.
I can't remember if I ordered one of the original, because I remember being like, somebody else like was like, these are the people to watch, like you need to watch for this because it's going to be amazing. And then just like looking at the website and being like, yeah, this is my vibe, and then like read it, and I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm gonna need it. And I can't remember if I did like the pre-order, if I waited, and then I was like, then I'm getting it. But it's really funny that you say it, because I fully remember that happening and people being like, ooh, what's gonna come out of this? And like there was so much buzz waiting for that to be released.
Well deserved buzz as well.
Appreciate it. For me, it's just crazy because like we didn't even have the premises like pretty close to that time, and it was just like we'd only just signed the lease on the premises like like a few weeks before that went live, and it was the brew kit wasn't even in place. Nothing was nothing was there, and we promised all this beer by like a certain date, and it was just like we've got no way to make this currently, and it's just like there's all currently plans, and the budget was extremely thin, and but no, it all worked.
Did you have the oh shit moment of where you like? Did you have a moment where you're like, oh shit, we've got this.
It was a bit like it was the closer it got. I mean, we felt like we were getting closer, but it was like, oh shit, are we gonna make this? Luckily, we were quite conservative in the time scale we gave ourselves. I think we said like we'll get the first beers out in May, and we just just made it, and it was just sort. When we did finally get him out, it was just like, holy crap, we actually did it! Like, what? But yeah,
That's a well-deserved celebration. Then you're like, yes, we've done it, and it's almost like you
we
can
didn't even
breathe a sigh
realise.
of relief.
We just finished our first delivery run, and then someone was like, "Oh, well done, guys. Well done for what? Oh, your first beers, you've got them out." It's like, oh yeah.
Shit.
Brilliant.
So, yeah.
How did you meet you and your business partner? Like when did you guys first meet?
We met at the Brewdog in Dundee. He was wearing a band T-shirt. I recognised. We just got. He knew the same people. I'd only been living in Dundee for maybe 3 or 4 months, but he knew the same people. We just got chatting about beer and whatnot, and then we just became good pals. And then whilst I was in the planning stages of this, I just started chatting to him. He was doing, funnily enough, because before I got into the brewing stuff, before I got into breweries, I was doing a PhD in archaeology in Edinburgh. He was doing a PhD in Dundee in sound design and sound tech. But we were talking about all that sort of stuff and beer, and I was telling him about all the plans, and I was showing him stuff because he's got quite a good graphic design background as well. I was like, this is sort of logos I'm thinking of, blah, blah, blah. And it just got more and more of like chatting more and more about it with him. And then one of our mates, our mate who's doing the website for me, was just sort of like, why don't you just get James involved? And I was like, yeah, all right. Like, why aren't you and James working on this together? And it was like, oh yeah, we should be. Okay. And we both like, yeah, cool.
I love it, just touche. Let's just. Shall we go on to the second beer? Because I'm conscious of the time and I want to be able to try all of them. So I'm really excited for this. And for a reason that feels especially like really stupid is so I'll play video games myself, and I feel like out of all the games that I could be playing, at the end of the day, when I want my brain to just rest, I'll sit and I'll play Stardew Valley. And like one of the fruits you have to get for somebody that's really hard to get is a star fruit. So while you were sat there going, that it was really hard to get, I was like, oh, tell me about it. It's nearly impossible. Like,
you know
as a farmer myself, I mean, I can relate. It's very difficult.
I'm glad to be talking to someone else who's in the same industry.
It is really difficult. You really have to cultivate those seeds. I tell my husband all the time, as a farmer myself, and he's just like, get the fuck out. So yeah, when you said starfruit, that's immediately where my brain went. Talk to us about this beer. Ooh.
So, as I was saying before, it's got more of a tropical base to it. The starfruit came from a supplier. It came not as whole fruit because it just wasn't possible to get starfruit like that. But they were able to supply it in puree form. So for us, that's typical for tropical fruit. We can't get hold of everything in whole. So where required, puree is absolutely fine. And especially, I think, like transporting large quantities of this fruit across, various continents doesn't always work that easily. But yeah, in terms of like the base beer, more tropical base, and then the star fruit itself, we use, I think it was 200 grams a litre, which is 220 grams a litre, which is a fairly decent chunk for us. And I think the flavour descriptors, like one of the nice things is trying the star fruit like puree on its own, and it comes across quite strong, but it also like works. It has very similar flavors to the base beer, so it doesn't like, and it's not as punchy as sort of like if you talk about like straight passion fruit. That's one of the strongest tropical fruits you can get, really intense. Whereas this one, I would say, passion fruit's like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Star fruit's more of like a 5 or 6 out of 10 in terms of intensity. So a little bit more subtle, but there's definitely like characteristics going on. We've described it as pear, apple, grape, and citrus. But one of the things that also added was like this sweetness to it that is like if like the beer finished the same gravity as the previous beer, but I find this one has a sweeter flavor to it, and I think that attributed to the fruit primarily.
There's almost like a creaminess about it, which I really enjoy,
Yeah,
alongside that tartness.
yeah. I think it might have added some sort of like thickness or
Yeah.
something in the fruit, maybe has passed through to yeah. But
I
yeah,
feel like it's that mouth coating tartness as well, which I just really love because I feel like it's, well, as a person that really likes sour beers and really enjoys the shop, like a shop sour note and that tartness to it, I also feel like on some level it is still quite approachable for somebody that, like, I think compared to like the Flanders Red that you guys do, like that's maybe not as approachable to somebody that
yeah,
is new to sours and doesn't know as much about sours, doesn't know if they like them. I feel like the Crusher and Starhammer, while they have a very sharpness to them, it is still something that I feel like could be approachable to somebody that is like, oh, I just want to find out if I really like sours, especially if they like sort of those fruity notes as well. But
yeah,
there's definitely like a passion fruity element to it. Once you said passion fruit, I was like, that is what's in my brain now.
yeah. No, definitely. It's. I don't think. I think our beers are definitely more sour than some of the mainstream sour beers you can get, but they're not like we never want to have beers that are like face rippingly sour. Like
Yeah.
that's not a balanced beer. Not that I'm trying to say we only make balanced beers because I don't necessarily believe balance is everything. I like to have beers that punch you in the face with certain things, but acidity is one of the things I do like to have balanced. So getting that right and having a beer that's not like like ripping your enamel off your teeth is always a bonus.
You
Yeah.
mentioned this was a puree form, and obviously the Bergamot was like the actual Bergamot. Do you have a preference of whether you prefer doing puree or the whole fruit? Like, does it, for you, does it make a difference, or does it very much depend on the fruit itself and what it is you're trying to brew?
It depends on the fruit itself and a variety of other factors. Um, some of it might be accessibility, price, how difficult it is to work with as a whole fruit. Um, for example, most tropical fruit will tend to be purees. You just can't get them in the quantity you want, or if you can buy them as whole fruit, it'll be like from some specialist shop where it's like 10 quid for one fruit. It's like, well, that's just not going to work. Um, for fruit, where possible, I do like to have whole. I do find you get a bit more complexity out of whole fruit. So yeah, Bergamot for citrus fruit, we always really have whole fruit. Although we do also add juice to some of them to bulk it up a bit, even a bit more. Um, and then for like berry fruits, I use a mix. I mean, in season, I'll use like whole, and then out of season it will be a mix. Sometimes whole, sometimes puree. Some fruit you don't want to use whole, so like strawberries have. I believe there's an off flavor associated with using whole strawberries that is like a plasticky flavor, and that is as far as I understand it from the seeds. So when you have puree of them de-seeded, then I've never had that issue with plastic like flavors coming off it. So that's one where I'll only ever use puree. But yeah, it depends. It's also if you're using whole fruit, you have to age the beer on the fruit for that much longer to get sort of like break down the fruit, get the sugars out. So it sort of depends what beer. If there's anything like specifically barrel aged beer, there will always be whole fruit. Um, just it's worth putting that much more time and effort into it. But yeah, some beers it's not price or cost effective. So yeah, it's just weighing up a lot of different factors. There is nothing inherently wrong with puree or juice. I just think sometimes they can be a little bit more one dimensional, but sometimes they're actually better than whole because you've got access to all the fruit and you can disperse it quite easily. And so it's all like sort of just gotta figure it out.
Yeah. Do you try and go seasonally with what you choose, or does it just depend on what type of beer you're trying to make at the time?
Yeah, seasonally, definitely. I mean, with this time of year, we definitely produce a more tropical fruit beers because there's not as much fresh seasonally. But definitely, seasonal is definitely one of the things we're all about. Like with the citrus beer, we produce that to the season when the citrus is available. Um, and then as soon as the fruit harvests are coming through for like the berries, like the part of Scotland we're in is like surrounded by polytunnels, farms of polytunnels with berries. So it's sort of just waiting for the certain berries to come through, and then we'll just absolutely load them into beer. And yeah, but I mean, we've got the ability to do, because if we're happy to use pureed for certain fruits anyway, it's like we can make this specific fruit year round. So it just depends. There's also some local producers where we can get frozen whole fruit, so we sometimes use that. And the freezing process is actually really good because it helps break down the fruit, so it's beneficial for the beer.
And in terms of when you're actually experimenting, because obviously some stuff, like you mentioned, can be a bit more sort of like tame, but not everything is as balanced, and some of it is a little bit more like you want to go punch you in the face for certain things. When you're doing something that's incredibly experimental, do you pilot it first, or do you go straight into like, is it just like, do you go, I'm taking the gamble, I'm going all in, and we're just going to go for it? Like, what is that process like for when you go super experimental?
It's mostly just go for it. I don't have a pilot kit, and I don't know. I think there's certain things you can change down the line. You can add to. You can blend things, and there hasn't been really any major hiccups. I think there are certain decisions where like that's fairly safe, and if it's wrong, I can add more. If it's too much, it's difficult to take away, but you could always blend it with other beer to reduce the what you've added. But yeah, generally we've not had any issues with that, so it's just sort of going off experiences and getting hands on with the ingredients and adjuncts, and just try not to fuck it up.
Absolute respect. I feel like my stress and anxiety levels are way too. This is why I'm 100% not a brewer. Like, I couldn't absolutely not deal with that. That is amazing. The fact that you're just like, yeah, we're just gonna go there. We'll just fix it. We'll just fix it. We got
through 2,000 liters, and hopefully
it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
We were brewing 5 liters at my house, and I got Tori to do the spart, and she was like, I don't want to lose any of it. Like, oh, what happens if I do something wrong? I'm like, you're literally just running water through grains. It's fine.
But in my brain, I was like, if I'm gonna do it, like the way I commit to stuff is like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it properly. And I didn't want to be the person, like, having never done that before, having not homebrewed before, being like, oh no, we could have gotten more out of that, but I didn't. So I was like, wait, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it fully. And she was like, yeah, you're not meant to be that.
It's fine.
In terms of the homebrewing side of things, actually, because that leads on to another really like a question that I had. If you have someone that is homebrewing and wants to brew more of the weird and wonderful, do you have any tips or recommendations on like how they should approach it, or maybe even things that's like absolutely do not do that, learn from my mistakes?
Not necessarily. I don't know. It depends what way you want to go about it. But if you want to do mixed firm home brewing, then there's a wiki called Milk the Funk that has all the sort of information you need. It's so detailed, and there's so much industry experience and also homebrew experience that there's everything there you need. But generally, for me, I just read a lot of books, read a lot of online articles, and um, if you read enough about something, you'll get a feel for what is typical, and just try and make like reasonable decisions about what makes sense. You can see like there'll be recipes of like commercial breweries versions of, let's say you want to make a chocolate stout of how much chocolate they use or how much of this variety of like cacao nibs or cacao husks, and you can get a sort of feel for like, okay, scale that down, that's about right, and then yeah, you just got to go for it, and it's all about learning anyway. Homebrewing is it's one of those things where you have the freedom to fuck it up. It's not a big deal if you mess it up. You're not throwing away thousands of pounds of beer. So yeah, you just do it, and you'll learn. Even if you have even if you do throw it away, you'll learn an important lesson. So it's still worthwhile. So yeah.
Brilliant. So we briefly mentioned the artwork on the bottles. They are all absolutely gorgeous every time we see one. Can you tell us a little bit about how the artwork comes about? Like, where do the ideas come from?
So for ones like this, it was
Crusher.
this one's done by Jim Bob Isaac, and it was sort of like gave him a brief of like cool looking skull dude with horns. Everything's always with horns, and psychedelic sort of background, and gave him some artwork from like bands we liked. This one's actually so the Crusher series is named after a band, Earthless, who have this song called what was it called? Oh God, the name's escaping me right this second. Right, it's Crusher. It's got Crusher in it. Acid Crusher. Okay, so there we go. But I remember I was like, we could call a beer Acid Crusher, but then it's like that sounds a little bit too like acidic. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
you don't want to conjure up that.
but yeah, so it's that inspired like their artwork's quite psychedelic and the music as well. So it's like, okay, let's use that as the sort of like basis for the artwork, and Jim Bob's like does artwork for sort of heavy metal bands and like doom bands like that, so he knew exactly what we're after. And then this is one by James, my business partner, and he's doing more and more artwork as the brewery goes on. Partly because we don't have to pay anyone money,
Yeah, I was
but
going to say, it
the
saves you a bit
real
of
part
money.
is he's actually a very talented artist,
Yeah.
and it's really nice to actually see his art style developing as we've gone on. And yeah, it's really happy with how he's for the inspiration for this. It's all him. I don't need to give any. I'm not doing a brief. He's not doing a brief. He's just doing what he wants, and he knows the style better than anyone because he's the guy behind most of the style for the brewery. So yeah, and he also did this one over here, which we'll get to shortly.
Nice.
I think the Blood Witch and the Goat Witch, like those ones,
Mm.
hands down love them. But I feel like for me, I genuinely feel like any of the labels that you guys do, I could easily hang on the wall. I feel like it's like art, like hang on the wall artwork worthy. It is like tattoo worthy. It's t-shirt worthy. Like it's all these. Just the art to me, especially as like a D&D player as well, like some of the stuff for me sticks out as stuff that I want to see in like my Dungeons and Dragons campaigns and like all that kind of stuff. I just absolutely love it. And I know that you sometimes sell some of the prints on the website as well. I think there was one up there now. And it's just, the Blood Witch and the Goat Witch ones, hands down, I think are probably my favourite ones.
Yeah, definitely one of my favourites as well, for sure. Yeah, we still have some of the prints of the original Goat Wizard art. We ordered way too many to begin with, and so
people need to go buy them. Hang them on your wall.
We still have a few left, but yeah, there's no rush. We'll just keep those forever. I don't mind.
Cool. Before we finish the rest of our line of questioning, and we overwhelm you too much, should we go on to the last one? Just so that way we don't keep you too much longer.
Will either need to neck this or get another glass.
Oh no, it's cool. We can carry on. Don't neck it, please. I'm conscious that I don't want to keep. I promised you an hour, and I'm like, I can ask you questions for days.
I'm gonna be drinking a full bottle of Stout. So.
Yeah.
Take my time with it.
Oh, these are gorgeous.
I know. I'm doing my level best not to pour them all. I'm like, no, don't drink it too quickly. Don't drink it too quickly. So I feel like I could quite easily neck these, and I don't want to do that.
Okay.
We were just saying it's way too easy to neck them. I'm doing my level best not to pour out too much. I'm like, no.
So
Pace.
So beautiful.
To be fair though, we didn't say the ABVs. Like, Starhammer was only 6%. I say only 6%,
Yeah.
but in the grand scheme of things, of like, for me, I feel like 6% is like the new session level for me, so it's fair. And the Bergamot Crusher was 5.6%,
Yeah.
so I feel like really, really easy to drink.
Now we've got
We've gone in the right order.
a nice 8.4%.
8.4.
Well, what a way to end. And I'm even going to use my Holy Goat glass on this one. Right.
Oh, that is a beautiful colour.
Oh, and it smells beautiful. Look at the head on that as well. That is like beautiful colouring on it.
Gorgeous.
Oh, I'm excited for you to talk us through this one, because I do want to know sort of like how you go about getting the recipe. Like, did you use a specific recipe, or was it like a mix of different recipes? Or talk to us about this one.
If you look up 1867 double stout on the internet, you will find there's a guy called Ron Pattinson who's a beer historian, and he has a couple of different recipes. He's actually got one of them's from a brewery called Reed's, and another one, the brewery is escaping my name right now. But basically, there are two strong export stouts brewed in 1867 with recipes from Ron Pattinson, and it was basically taking bits of those and then getting a feel for, okay, this is what the beer would have been like, and then putting a twist on it. Like, it's not 100% exactly that recipe, because also those recipes don't really make proper sense anymore, because they use like brown malt and like certain other malts that wouldn't make a beer taste right these days. The malt profile itself's probably changed. The way it's produced has changed. Brown malt back in the 19th century was not. It was kilned differently, so it still had the power to. It still had diastatic power, so the ability to convert sugars. The complex sugars and break them down in the mash. But the modern brown malt is kilned to a higher level, so it's a bit more bitter, toasty, roasty, coffee-ish, but you also lose all that diastatic power. So it's more of a specialty malt. So we still use a fair amount of brown malt in this, but it's got to be balanced with the other malts to sort of to come out with a beer that's also somewhat historical, but also tasty.
It is
It's
very
important.
tasty.
It's important to be tasty.
Yeah.
There is that like that roasty toasty like coffee, but then there's almost like a chocolate element to it as well, and it is just like, and I feel like the booziness, in my opinion, for my taste buds, is just like that right level, because I think sometimes you can have something where it's almost too boozy, or it's like doesn't have that booziness to it, but sometimes I want that boozy warmth to it, and I feel like this is just like sort of the right level. It's balanced out perfectly, especially for the ABV, which is just makes it really something that you want to sit and sip on. But like, I feel like this bottle, I don't need to share this bottle. Like, I can have this
absolutely.
to me.
One thing that we always make sure we can do is, it's called the pint test. Can you drink a full pint of that beer? Because I have a problem with certain breweries who make beers that you take a few sips of, and they're like, initial sips, like, oh, it's gorgeous, and then you get like 3 sips in, you're like, I don't want any more of that. That's too much. And they're beers that have too much sugar. They're not, it's transcending that boundary of like, is this still beer or what? It's pushing it to a limit, and I'm fine with that. That's interesting and cool and fun, but like, I don't want to be drinking those beers all night. Whereas this is a beer where I could easily have a pint of it. It's, quaffable.
Yeah.
And I feel like the body's perfect on it as well. And it's not, it has like that sweetness to it that's with that's going alongside that noticeable like bitterness and the roasty elements to it, but it's not like syrupy. Like sometimes what you can get with beers that have those similar notes as well can be almost like syrupy mouth coating. And sometimes, like you said, those are the ones that I find, like the first few sips, you're like, oh, that's great. And then after a while, you're just like, oh, no, like too much, can't do it. Whereas this is just like, yeah, this is just a dream in a glass. I love it.
Cheers. Yeah, they're having that bitterness there. You know, for these sorts of historical beers, it's a lot of whole leaf hops. So you get a different kind of bitterness than, say, with some of the more pastry stouts where they'll use like some high alpha hops right at the beginning of the boil because they just minimize. It's not about the hops, minimal hops added to it, just enough to get the bitterness. Whereas this is use a lot of whole leaf, lower alpha hops at the beginning of the boil, and you also add a load towards the end of the boil. So you're getting a more depth of bitterness. It's more like pronounced. It's sort of there's something about 15 and 20-minute additions of hops that adds a certain like bitter character that is different. It's you lose that if you only add 60-minute additions or 90-minute additions. And then this one was bumped up with a bit of sugar as well. So this was generally we'll only be using darker sugars for beers like this. It'll be like Muscovado or dark Demerara sugar, which helps hit the ABV. And is also sugar was commonly added to beers in the 19th century, so it's pretty typical. They might not have been adding darker sugar, but it was probably unrefined, unprocessed sugar. So we don't really know what color it would have been. Yeah, I'll leave that one to the beer historians. So yeah, 8.4% is an interesting ABV. You'll be seeing a lot more of it because there is recent duty changes. So the old 7.4% or 7.5% is now 8.4%. So prepare to see a lot of double stouts, especially from us. And our stronger beers will generally be about 8.4, and then occasionally we'll have beers that go above that. But the price cost to consumers is massive. It's like an extra £1, £1.50 per bottle, which is already when you've got an 8.4% beer that you're already charging like £7 or £8 for, and then it's like £9 or £10. That's a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
It's and then you as a brewery you're like, oh, what can we, should we take some of this cost on? And you calculate the price of a beer, and it's like by going from 8.4 to 8.5, it's like this beer just cost an extra £1,000. It's like to make. It's like, is there any need for that? Yeah. So as is very traditional historically, we go by the laws of the time, and we'll make sure we'll do certain things to make things like make it feasible. So yeah, there'll be a lot of 8.4% beers from us, and other breweries. But then we've got a barley wine coming out in a few weeks that's 10%, and we've got some other strong stuff planned for later this year. So it's still happening, but it's just prepare to spend money.
Yeah, I'm prepared. Like I feel like any time that we talk about Holy Goat, I'm like, just take my money. Like we have talked again. Like I said, I try not to like fangirl about it too much, but it's literally every time we talk about it on the podcast, I'm like, just take my money. Like you guys release stuff, and I'm like, all right, just take more of my money. Like it's fine. I'm not even mad about it. I've made peace with it. It's fine. I can happily take more of these, and I'll be very happy.
It's very much appreciated, because we would be totally ruined without people like you who are willing to put your faith in us. So and money, most importantly, money.
It's so talking about sort of like telling people about it as well. So obviously you guys were the Raise the Bar winners in 2023, so you were at all the We Are Beer festivals.
I judged that.
Yeah,
You're
get in. And I remember
those ones are winning. Thank you.
I remember like hearing about that and being like, yes, this is great. This is great for me. But also I know so before we started recording and you came on, I was talking about being in Bristol. Because I've got, people that listen, like they know that I work in Bristol. So one of our offices is in Bristol, so I have to go down there somewhat regularly. So I've got friends in the office that work down there and their partners. So we all agreed like we're going to go to Bristol Craft Beer Festival. I'll work out the Bristol office. We'll go down there. Like that'll be great. Took them around, and one of my co-workers' partners, she likes beer, but she was a bit like, I don't really know all the things that I like. And she said to me, what is your favorite beer? Like either what's your favorite beer or who's your favorite brewery at? Like who should I try? Like who is your favorite? And I was like, oh, Holy Goat hands down is my favorite. I'm so happy that they won the Raise the Bar. And she was like, great, I'm going to go try that now. So I was talking to because I was talking to her about it and I was like, this is amazing. And they've done this and that's good. And she's like, I'm going to go try it now. And I was like, I feel like I should go in with a warning as a person that maybe doesn't go into certain styles of beer. Maybe just proceed with caution around which one you're going to get. And I was like, because I don't want you to be like, yes, fill it up. And then I was like, maybe just sample it first, just in case that's maybe not to your taste. And then she was like, oh, so she went in with went in whole hog. And then she went, it's not necessarily like my taste. And she's like, but you can tell that it's a really good quality. And she was just like, I am enjoying like what I'm tasting. It's just not the style that I normally go for. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I was like, I'm glad that I gave you the warning, but also the fact that you were willing to try it and you came out of it going, I can tell that this is like a really well-made product, even if it's not for me. Do you find that when you're at these beer festivals that you have people that are like, I'm going to give this a try? Or do you find that when you talk to people about it, because when I've worked behind the bar at beer festivals and you say, this is a sour, this is mixed foam, whatever, you get two reactions. That's either, oh, or, oh, like there's not, like, do you find that there's a struggle when you've gone to the festivals last year, or were people super receptive to trying it? Were they loving it? Like, how was it for you?
I would say for us, we tend to get people who, for the most part, like I'd say maybe 60-70% of people who come up to us for a beer already know about sour beers and just want to try what we've got. There's maybe 20-30% of people who come up and are like, oh, I'm not sure, I'll give it a try. And then they wander off and you either see them like happy, go, oh, wow, or like they just wander off and you never see them again, so you don't really know. There are some people who come up and say, do you have any IPAs? And you're like, no. It's like, what do you have? Just sour beers. And they're like, okay. And they just walk off. And so you get a nice mix. But you occasionally get people who are like, oh, sour beer, what's that? I've never tried that. And you're like, okay, try this. And they're like, oh yeah. And they try everything. And it's like, awesome. That's a good feeling when you gotten someone to, especially if, there are people there who might not be that into like regular sort of like craft beers or IPAs or lagers or whatever, and they just want to see what else is about. So having something different, and then it's fruited. So often most of our beers have fruit involved, so that's often a nice draw as well for people. So
she was just like, she was like, how passionate you talked about that beer. She's like, I'm going to go try it now. And then that's when I had to be like, whoa, just maybe sample it first, because I know that you normally go for like pale ales. And I was like, hang on a minute. And she was like, I was impressed. She kind of went all in and she's like, now I'm just going to get a glass and I'm just going to try it. And she was like, she's like, even though that's not my normal taste, I really enjoyed it. You could tell it was quite like high quality. And I was like, well, at least I was like so worried. I was like, please don't slate somebody that I absolutely like, that I go in. That was like the first drink I had at the festival. And she was like, no, it's actually really good. Okay, it's good. But I also saw, so I think I got talking to, I believe it was James that was down at Craft Theory, because I was working on bar at Craft Theory not too far in Reading, like a few stalls down from the Holy Goat. And that's when we started talking about funk. So Funk Weapons on the bar. I was really gutted because I really wanted to get Joe and I a bottle of that so that we could talk about it on a yeast-based episode. Because I feel like out of all the breweries, you guys are one of the ones that shout about the importance of yeast more so than maybe I've seen from other breweries, which I feel like yeast, super underrated in beer in general. What gave you the idea with that Funk Weapon? I understand it was a series because I had one and I think there was another one, at least another one or two before it.
the idea of Funk Weapon is it's not really an idea. It's just this is the base beer we make, and sometimes we'll just be like, oh, we haven't done just a straight up base beer release in a little while, so let's just do one. I think it grounds us a little bit, and it shows people like you're tasting all these beers with different fruits, different adjuncts, and then but like behind that there is a really solid base. And sometimes we come across a certain batch that, for whatever reason, is just like, oh, that's tasted really banging. We can't do anything with that. That would be like that would be rude. That would be disrespectful
Religious.
to the yeast. So we just put it out, and then sometimes it's just like, oh, we don't have any money to spend on fruit this month. Let's just put out. No, that never happens. But yeah,
I was saying, I for one am all for it, because that Funk Weapon, for anyone that's not had it, it basically just showcases the importance of what yeast can bring to a beer. Where it was like, it tasted like there was fruit in it, like it tasted beautiful and fruity and just refreshing, and I could sit there and I could session that, and it was like, yeah, it's all just yeast. And I was like, what?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things about it, is like I'd quite like to have these as sort of like, this is a session beer. You sell it in 30 litre or 50 litre kegs to pubs. They just have it on all the time. But we sort of set ourselves into this sort of like new beer all the time thing, and would bars still buy as much if it was the same beer as a month or two ago? And so we're sort of like, we have to change it up a bit. But we've had, I think last year we did maybe 3 different just straight up base beer releases. So there was a Funk Weapon, a Goat Wizard, and a Shrine Builder. If you haven't tried the Shrine Builder, that's one of the ones that I would say is also tasting like particularly good. We've had a lot of people talk about that beer with us, who were like, nice.
I just like, nice.
Gonna, I can hear her clicking. She's going on the website right now to look for it.
I absolutely am. I was like, is it available for me to buy literally right now?
I think that one might have sold out. But,
it is not. Well, I will eagerly await. I'll eagerly await the next we do, because we need another one for our yeast-based episode. So I am just like, waiting for this now. But yeah, I feel like, and talking about like it would be disrespectful to put fruit in it, I feel like it's disrespectful to say anything more than just nice, because I feel like that just there's no words that can really do it. Just nice.
Yeah.
Do you have, in that, while we're talking about that, do you have a standout beer of yours that is your favourite? Or, can you not choose between your children?
No, I can choose.
Yeah.
You're like, no, easily, so easily.
I mean, there's a few beers you come across and you're like, this is the one. This is like one of the best beers we've ever put out. And Unholy Mountain was probably one of those for me, where it's like, no questions, this beer is like ridiculous. So that is Holy Mountain, and then the unholy version of that was barrel aged in Scottish whiskey barrels with the whole cherries in the barrels, and it was just like that beer was a nightmare, because you think, oh yeah, we'll put fruit in the barrel, we'll put the beer in the barrel, and then we'll get the beer out of the barrel without any of the fruit blocking up any pumps or any of the siphoning equipment we've got, and everything will just be fine, and we'll get loads of the beer out, and there won't be any losses. And it's just like, no, it was a nightmare. There was a lot of losses. It was a headache, but the beer that came out of it was ridiculous. So worth it. And we've got another batch in barrel from this year's, the most recent Holy Mountain. So we're aging that at the moment. But we weren't able to get whole cherries this time because the harvest wasn't as good. So we got, and it wasn't from it wasn't from the same location as the previous cherries. So it might be a little bit different. We might have to put even more cherries into it. We'll figure something out. But
You should call
yeah.
it Even More Cherry Mountain. That's what you should call it. And this time, there's definitely not going to. It's Even More Unholy Mountain. And I feel like this time, it's definitely not going to clog up anything. It's going to be, this time, it's
No.
definitely going to be fine.
Well, there's no whole fruit in the barrels.
Yeah. So it's like, at least this time, it's on your side.
Getting mostly sick of dealing with fruit in barrels. So there's a reason why most breweries don't do that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
In terms of sort of dream collabs of yours, like, is there anyone that you haven't collabed with that you're like, if I could do a collab with anybody, like there's someone, so for example, it doesn't even have to be a brewery. So I know that before Grumpy Goat in Reading closed, which really upsetting in itself, but before that they washed cheese in one of your beers, and that was easily like it was I basically went, this one's the best one, which one is that? And then they went, oh, that's Holy Goat. And I was like, that's amazing. I was so gutted to like not, I was going to buy some to take home and didn't. So the collab doesn't even have to be another brewery. Dream collab, who would it be with?
Dream collab, well, it would be another, well, in this, Jester King, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, up until this point, my dream collab was Fantome, and then that happened. So
I know.
Dreams come true.
Yeah.
That was I like, as we were saying before we started recording, I went on the web shop this morning. I was like, oh, it's another one. I saw the Fantome, and I was like, I'm gonna have to buy that one now, aren't I? Is there a type of beer or a specific ingredient that you've not used yet that you are like, if I could get a hold of this? So again, no financial barriers to entry, no like potentially making something that people aren't going to drink.
Yeah.
What would you do? Sky's the limit.
There's this fruit from South America called Jabuticaba that I was looking at for ages and trying to get hold of, and it was on one of the fruit producers' lists, and I was like, oh, that sounds like that could be really good. And then they were like, nah, we can't do it. Got my hopes up. Because it was like one of these fruit that's got like, it's like supposedly like grapey, but also like bubble gum, and just like they have some descriptors that are just like, that's really unusual. That would be super awesome to try that in a beer. And it's never a fruit I've never heard of before. You start going down all these, like looking at all these random like fruits that you never heard of the name of before, and like, oh, what does that taste like? Oh, that's just going to taste like this. A lot of the fruits you find that you're like, I want to try that, but then you like look at the flavor profile of it, and you're like, well, that just sounds like that and that, but it will cost about 18 times as much. So you're like, well,
just put that and that in it.
Sorry?
I could just put that and that in it instead, the same
Exactly.
80 times the price.
Some of the most ingredients that I'm most interested in using at the moment are, I'd say not, I don't know if you want to call it ingredients, but like sherry barrels are amazing and have such a crazy character that I would absolutely love to get hold of some sherry barrels. And well, we've got one, but it's been used for whiskey, and then now we've got it. So, and it's been used a few times by us as well. But getting hold of fresh sherry barrels would be awesome. They're also the most expensive barrels that you can get, pretty much, because they're so in demand in the whiskey industry. So at some point we will, but I've been looking at them, being like,
one day I was going to say, one day you're just going to be like, all right, I'm going to session a few 8.4s, get that going. And then you're going to be like, oh, whoops, I ordered it. That was my bad.
Jory just needs to give you more money.
That's it.
To do it.
I was going to say, expect more money at the end of tonight. I'm not going to lie to you.
It's one of those things where, like, if you factor the price of that barrel into the beer, then it's just like, well, that barrel holds 250 liters and it costs about $1,000. So it's just like the most expensive ingredient you could possibly add. Yeah, pretty much. But before we move on, you mentioned the Grumpy Goat before, and they actually came up to us to do a collab, and the collab is the barley wine I was mentioning earlier. So we're going to have that available, and then we're going to start chatting about it next week and have that available in the next couple of weeks.
But I might have to hold off on my order so I can do one order and get that as well, because I believe that when I was there, there was like talks of there was going to be a collab and everything else like that. So I was like really excited. And that that washed cheese was phenomenal. Like it was so. I'm not much of I'm really weird about my cheeses where I prefer the hard cheese and everything else. And this was a slightly softer cheese. And I was like, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see what it's like. And it was incredible. So moreish. I was just like, I want more. I want more. And I was going to buy some to take home, but it was the end of the night and they were like, it's last orders and the cheese counter's not open anymore. And I was like, please.
They didn't even bring the last orders in the cheese counter.
It's like, I didn't get last orders on cheese. Like that was, but it was, honestly, it was incredible. Like, yeah, so I'm going to have to hold off because I'm going to need that one as well. So I might as well do one more and get them all in. Cool, yeah. So I know that we got to wrap up in a minute, but what I really love about your labels is on all of your labels, it says drink young or age, this will get weirder. I know Joe and I have talked about this before. I absolutely fucking love that. In your opinion, how long, like what's your approach to knowing how long to age something for? Do you have like a method to it or do you just risk it for a biscuit, as they say?
It's a risk. I would say anything fruited, you're probably going to get the most out of the fruit within the first year, and then it's going to change, and you'll start getting yeast character dominate. But so this came about because it's like, this will develop, and there's yeast character, and that will change over time. It will get weird. It might get weirder, but it doesn't say it's going to get better. We're not saying the beer's going to get better. So yeah, it will get weirder. So
no, but that's what I loved about it.
We don't promise you anything.
Joke's on you, I'm into that.
Yeah, that is to be fair, like you are 100% right. But that's what I really loved about the label is because it's like, well, if you can try it now, or you can wait and take a gamble on it, see if it gets more weird, see if it's good weird or bad weird.
Exactly. We've got 10 years date on it as well, so if anyone's coming back to us in 10 years' time saying it doesn't taste right, then
it was bad weird, and you're like, that's on you, man.
Yeah,
the label said weird.
We said weird, didn't say good. It's our get out clause.
Brilliant. I love that.
Oh, that is amazing. Down to the final few questions. So one of them being, if you had to pick one of your beers to represent Holy Goat as a brewery, and you could only pick just one, is there one that you would pick? Is there one you could pick? I know that you've got the one that's your favourite, but is there one that represents you the best and why?
No.
No,
Yeah,
that's a good answer.
I like that.
No,
that's a valid answer.
I would say maybe. I would say something.
I love how much easier it was to choose your favourite. Like, we were like, can you choose a favourite? And you were like, immediately yes. And it was like, can you pick one that represents a brewery? I don't know. All of them.
Yeah, no. Let's go with my favourite. Yeah, let's just say that. Because that one is like one of the nerdiest, one of the most annoying to produce, and has high fruiting levels, has insane Brett fermentation character, and it's all of the Holy Goat stuff in one package. It's also wax dipped and impossible to get into. So everything about that is just like, this beer is a fuck you for us to make and a fuck you for you to drink. So enjoy.
That's with the wax seal. I absolutely love the wax seals. How do you choose which ones get wax seals and which ones don't get wax seals? Do you just go, that one's a wax seal, that one is or just today we've got wax?
It's always the smaller batches because nobody can be bothered doing the whole batch and doing a larger batch with wax dipped. And then if something's been a particular hassle to make, then it's like, well, let's just add more hassle to it.
You might as well.
So
you've got this far.
it also just like, it shows premium, and especially towards like the end of the year, towards Christmas time, we'll start doing more wax stuff. But it's generally like sometimes there's like, shall we wax dip this one? And there's a lot of no's and shut up and fuck you and never.
I quite like that answer. Let's go with that. I like that. If somebody is listening to this that hasn't tried your beers before, because I don't know why, they just haven't. They've not been listening to us before. They've not taken our advice before, but now that you're on, they want to put in an order with Holy Goat. But let's just say they're newer to mixed firm beers as a whole. They're newer to what you guys do. What would be something that has to go in their basket? Like, it can be something that's not currently on your web shop, but maybe you rebrew it. What is the one that they need to make sure is there for them to try as an introduction?
I would say, I mean, out of the current beers we've got, I would definitely say Bergamot Crusher. That is literally like the aroma just like smashes you in the face as soon as you open the bottle. And I think that's a really good like showcase of, especially as well, like the ingredients. It's like it's one that you know about, but you might not have tried. So it's like you're actually, in some ways, being able to try this ingredient that you wouldn't usually be able to get hold of, and you can try it in a beer that is quite nice. So
Definitely
nice.
don't disagree.
I would say it's very nice.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Final question, Joe. Shall I let you ask the final question? I've asked too many questions.
Yeah, so what's next for Holy Goat? What do we need to be looking out for?
Oh, so one of the things we are starting to do more of is non-mixed firm beers.
Ooh.
Mind
Breaking
blown.
news.
So we're going to continue on making the same amount of mixed firm beers, but then a nice way for us to grow the business and not try and oversaturate the market with our mixed firm beers and keep them at a scale that's nice to produce is to produce more sort of like clean, as some people might call it, so not mixed firm, using not using Brett cultures, but yeah. So we'll be doing more stouts. We're big into stouts, and we've been making them from the very first release. So there's definitely gonna be more stouts, but then more Belgian styles as well, and then more other weird styles. We make an IPA for a music festival every year. Maybe we'll make a few IPAs. You know, we'll just, if something's interesting for us, then we'll make it. And yeah, it's just sort of, you know, we're not in here to be limited by what we make. We'll make what the hell we want, and just because we're a mixed firm brewery doesn't mean we can't make a Czech style pilsner. And yeah, maybe we will at some point. That's the dream.
We're here for that. I feel like it is our last year has been the year of the lagers, and it's like we might as well go lager round 2 for for the next year. So
yeah,
that would be amazing. Would love to see what you guys do with like a straight up lager as well.
Same. I just want you know, the keg in my flat, just next to me at all times. Just yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like we drink enough mixed firm sour beers, and we're making, you know, these beers that are premium and are very nice to drink, and I can absolutely drink pints of them. But you know, sometimes I just want something that just tastes like a lager. So,
can relate, definitely.
Hard relate, yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us. I realised we kept you way over when we said we would. So thank you so much for sticking around and not just like leaving us. So appreciate that. Anything you want to plug? Any socials, events, anything? This is coming out a week from when we're recording this. So anything on the calendar people should have a look out for? Yeah,
just have a look for the latest beer releases. They'll be coming out on our socials probably around the time this comes out. So really happy with how these next 3 beers are tasting. One of them's a barley wine collab, our first barley wine, and as a barley wine lover myself, I'm just so happy to finally get one out, and something we've been talking about in the brewery for a while. And that's with the Grumpy Goat as well, and who are sadly no longer in business, but like who came up and we had a great time making beer. So yeah, that's one of them, and then we've got a big Flanders Red with a mixture of Scottish fruit in there, and one more beer that's a collab with a Hong Kong brewery that uses lychee and jasmine. and a golden
wow.
sour. So another quite tropical forward golden sour, and some nice ingredients in there. So yeah, really looking forward to getting those out into the world. So yeah, have a look on the web shop. They'll be there soon.
Well, Joe and I have a challenge to one of our beer drinking challenges that we've got for 2024 is to have a beer with different fruits in it. So there we go, lychee. We can add that to the list. That's great. And Joe, we need to make sure we release this episode slightly later on the Monday so I can get to the web shop before everybody else. So excellent. Thank you so much for joining us, Jonny. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.
So I think I can safely say, I mean, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I think I think you did really well there, but you were definitely fangirling.
I don't care. I don't even care. Like, it's not.
I mean, these are delicious beers.
It's not as like
They're
I don't.
so good.
No one should be surprised. These are amazing.
Yeah.
Like this is the thing is like I don't think that I'm being out of pocket and I'm fangirling over something that is not worth it. Like I am. For me, I'm like like they are consistently. I still maintain that since I've started banging on about how much I love Holy Go beers, I have not had one that I can go, not for me. I don't like that. Like, I feel like every single one that I've tried at a beer festival or purchased a bottle of or whatever, I have absolutely loved and been like, this is 100% me. Like, there's very few breweries that I can say everything that I have from them is to my taste. Not like good or bad, like literally just to my personal taste. Yeah. And I feel like Holy Goat strikes that balance for me of interesting, but then, you know, as we were talking to Jonny, and like as people will be listening, the fact that they're like, oh, within this coming year we're just gonna put out stuff that isn't sort of like mixed, like to me I'm like, well, that's really like, for me that's cool. I am completely happy with that because I love somebody that can scratch all those itches equally, because what I find is it tends to be the weird and wonderful is what gets neglected. Yeah. And so to me I'm excited. I'm just excited to see what they can do. And just, the fact that they're just like, then we just have a base beer that you drink and you just go, this is disrespectful to put anything into. Like, I'm like, I could just drink that. Like, that would be, I feel like I've been getting heartburn a lot more recently in the last like 6 months. And I've never had that before. Like, I could drink sours for days or like, bretted beers for days. I'm not mid 30s yet. Give me a break.
No, girl, this is how it starts.
I've got and
the heartburn starts, girl.
I've just got just under a year left.
You're going to be having hangovers soon, and then Rick and I will be really happy.
Everybody told me when I hit 30s, and that didn't happen. So I think this is just a weird coincidence that all of a sudden I get heartburn. But everyone's telling me have ginger beer for that, apparently. So I'll just keep drinking these for days and just have a ginger beer, so it's fine. And it actually worth the heartburn. Not even mad about it. And this is the thing, is like for them, flavour's great. It's all the things that I love about a beer. Great flavour, interesting flavour, complex. Yeah. Beyond that, amazing artwork, amazing names. So even if I'm a label magpie, still gets my attention. What else could you want? If you've not tried them, try them.
Why haven't you?
How are you listening to us and you've never once thought to yourself, maybe I should try it?
Try one of those. Definitely go do it. If you haven't, go do it. And like, and if you're not necessarily, like, if you're sitting there and you're like, I'm not a sour beer drinker, like, grab one of these crushers, because this Bergamot Crusher is redonkulous. Like, the aroma,
all of it,
the complexity. Herbal, citrusy, juicy. There's a tartness. Oh, it's there's that little bit of bitterness through that's just cleaning it all.
The stout, arguably, I felt like the stout as well. Arguably had like almost like a hint of tobacco after a bit as well, and that was just like, oh, the complexities.
It just tastes like chocolate. It tastes like chocolate, and there is no chocolate in this beer, people. This is a beer tasting like beer.
It's just all of it's really good, and I could have asked questions for days, and I was like, I just need to pare it down to like only the questions that I 100% need to ask. And even then, it was too many questions, but I'm not even mad. Like, this is what comes with when you have zero ego and zero ego and zero sense of self-worth. You just start going, I don't even care anymore. What are you going to do? Just not talk to me? That's fine. I got to ask my question, though. So he was very gracious, and he didn't make me feel like the super fan that I am. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Jonny.
Tori, if people want to ask you how it's going with you basically paying for one of Holy Goat's sherry barrels, where can they get hold of you?
I feel like I should just give them the money for the sherry barrel. There you go. I don't have that kind of money, so if anyone thinks that I have that kind of money, I don't. Because
you're
despite
just
what we're
talking,
talking,
up the fund. It's fine.
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like what I will say is there's not. I don't want to say there's not too many breweries that I put in consistent orders from, because I feel like that's not true. There are certain like local breweries I regularly will go and buy them because they're so accessible. When I have to actually order beers, I feel like Holy Goat is probably, out of every brewery, has the most orders from me, as a singular brewery that I have to get orders from, and that I can't just buy beers from a local bottle shop or something for. Like, direct to brewery, they probably get the most return orders from me, or somebody else is putting in an order and I'm like, chuck some in for me as well and I'll give you money. Like, that is how it works, and I'm not ashamed of that. So I will continue to preach the good gospel of the Holy Goat. So if anyone wants to come talk to me, if you've got a moment to talk about our Lord and Saviour Holy Goat, please drop me a message. I'm more than willing to talk all about them, what I love about them, and how they should hopefully have a new sherry barrel soon. You can find me on Instagram at adventures_in_optimism, or you can email me and tell me to just stop being creepy at adventuresinoptimism@gmail.com. Joe, if people want to talk to you about if you've ever homebrewed something weird and wonderful, where can people come and talk to you?
I mean, the things that I've homebrewed are not as weird and wonderful as Holy Goats, but you can come talk to me about putting donuts in beer, because I did that once and it was not a fun cleanup. Come talk to me.
I can't believe we convinced you to do that.
You did. You convinced me to do that, and I did it, and
persuasive.
I mean, I'd say I wouldn't do it again, but the beer did taste like donuts, so I probably
You'll do it again. You'll do it again.
Aware.
You'll just learn from your past mistakes.
I'm just aware of how much cleanup it is now, and I just have to
hire it out
for that.
Get someone else in.
yeah, I need to get an assistant to do that for me.
It won't be me,
because he won't do it. It won't be me. So maybe can you convince Rick to be my assistant?
No, won't be him. No, he doesn't even like he wouldn't.
Okay,
it wouldn't be worthwhile for him.
If you want to come and contact me and be my assistant to clean up the donut mess, you can get hold of me at my beer school, which is Love Beer Learning, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Pinterest. But realistically, I'm only going to respond to you on Instagram, maybe Facebook, so definitely not X. So come find me there, or come to my website, lovebeerlearning.co.uk. I've been putting out some blog posts. There's some new stuff coming on there, so go and have a look. Or you can email me, lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. Please send me your resume to be my assistant to clean up my donut mess. Thank you.
And if you want to talk to both of us about how this interview went, it's been a day. It's been one. I'm not even feeling sociable. And this is, I was just like, it is happening. This is exciting. If you want to talk to both of us about anyone else you want to see come on the podcast, or you want to keep track of all the fun stuff that we're going to be doing, you can find us on Instagram at A Woman's Brew, or you can email us at awomansbrewpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook as A Woman's Brew. We're on X, but realistically, no.
I forget to check it, so don't speak to us there.
And Joe's the other one that has access, because I don't tweet or X or whatever
it is now.
But yeah, if you want to talk to us, I'm more likely to get you on Instagram or the email. But yeah, well, on that note, Joe, let's go finish the rest of these beers.
Cheers.
Cheers.